Yep. We are. For those who just came in, when you want your party validated, just bring it here.
Doesn't matter where you sit. The images are all the same.
So I get to work.
Take one pass down, Roger. I appreciate that.
Good evening. Good evening. Just a couple of housekeeping items. I think that the security protocol is being passed around to everybody, so make sure you read through that. If you'll also make sure that all of your cell phones are set to vibrate or turned off. We all know how obnoxious it is when someone's phone goes off. The worst is if you're the speaker and your phone goes off. I've been around that once before. It was not me. If you parked in the Quicken garage, they are validating. So either before we start or before you leave tonight, find Ton, and he will put a little sticker on the back of your parking pass.
Sorry, Milton?
Yes.
We actually have to do the parking validation first, just so we can get that the rest of the book back to the young ladies at the front desk.
And that's just what I said. We are not going to start this evening until everyone lines up nice and orderly and has time to validate their parking sticker. See, that's what I said.
I heard you, yeah.
Definitely. So why don't you just come on up and go ahead and do this with time while we're just going to wait in here. While we're doing that, let me give you a sort of quick introduction to this evening. First of all, I thank all of you for coming all the way out here from Detroit, from the suburbs, from Ann Arbor, from Toledo, wherever you are coming from. Really appreciate you coming out this evening. This evening, after we finish the parking validation, I will give a quick shout out to our sponsors, thanking them. We'll go through a quick explanation of the format for a meetup if you haven't been to one before. We'll introduce our keynote speaker. We'll have our 5 presenters this evening. We'll have our usual announcement of coming events, make sure everyone knows what else is going on. Then we'll be awarding door prizes. Did everybody get their ticket downstairs when they checked in? Good. Those of you who are from Chicago probably picked up 2 tickets, but that's okay. I think that's pretty much it. So anyone else that hasn't gotten their parking validated, Ton is at the back. Ton is the organizer, he's the mover and the shaker. I'm just his front piece here, I'm the puppet. So I'm the master of ceremonies for this evening. To begin, I'd like to thank all of our sponsors. I'd like to thank Bistum University, where ideas get to work. The Collaborative Group, as they work to bring the intellectual capital of the region's talent together to spur business and philanthropic efforts in this area. Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, making business success in Detroit possible. H&T Medical Solutions, helping psychiatrists simplify their practices with mental note. TechTown, Detroit's largest small business incubator, and our hometown sponsor. And of course, Quicken Loans, America's home loan experts, and our facility and event host this evening. So a quick round of applause for our sponsors, please. For those of you that have not been to a meetup meeting before, we'll have 5 presenters. We have 5 minutes to make their presentation. There'll be 5 minutes of Q&A, and there'll be follow-up with 1 minute of suggestions for future reference for the speaker. All of this will be timed. You see my handy-dandy alarm clock here. When the timer goes off, we will stop you in mid-sentence. You will not be allowed to finish your sentence. With that, I'd like to go ahead then and introduce our keynote speaker, Josh Linkner. Josh is the founder and chairman of ePrize. Over the last 11 years, ePrize has hired over 1,800 people provides digital marketing services for 74 of the top 100 brands. Josh was named Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, Automation Alley's CEO of the Year, and Executive of the Year by the Detroit Executive Association. That was all just in the last month. Prior to ePrize, Josh was the founder and CEO of 3 other technology-based startups. Josh is also the author of 2 books. His latest book, Disciplined Dreaming, a proven system to drive breakthrough creativity, helps organizations and individuals jumpstart their imagination and build creative teams. Josh is also a professional jazz musician and regularly performs in clubs across the U.S. Josh just launched his 5th company, a VC firm named Detroit Venture Partners. Along with his partners, Dan Gilbert and Brian Hemmerlin, Josh is actively engaged in early-stage technology companies and looks to help rebuild our region through entrepreneurship. Ladies and gentlemen, enough of me. Josh Linkner.
I think I'm good. Can you guys hear me all right? Mike? Yeah? All right, cool. So, entrepreneurs. Now, how many people are actually like running their own company right now today? Show of hands. Okay, a lot. That's great. And how many people, if they're not running one, want to be at some point fairly soon? All right, so we got a room full of entrepreneurs here. So I was thinking about the entrepreneurial journey. And it occurred to me that there's a really good analogy of it. The space shuttle. So when the space shuttle takes off, it burns 2/3 of its fuel in the first 15 minutes of flight. And the other remainder of fuel lasts like 2 weeks. And what that is showing is how tough it is to get through gravity. I think that the entrepreneurial quest is no different. There's this gravitational pull that even though we are passionate, we have an amazing idea, it's like the world's trying to keep us down. And so with that, I just want to take my hat off and admire, you guys who are the future of this region and are going to make the biggest difference of all, even though it's really tough. I think there's a lot of fantasies about being an entrepreneur. Oh, it's, you go, you work for yourself, you don't have to work as hard. Are you kidding? That's like the check is in the mail, right? That's a fantasy. It's one of the hardest things that there possibly could be. If it was easy, I suppose everybody would do it. But it's also one of the most rewarding and one of the most powerful ways that you can drive impact, not only for your own wealth creation and family, but for the region. And that's one of the things I want to talk about a little bit today. You know what I was thinking? You know what really pisses me off? People always say, well, that's not rocket science. Or that's not hard. You have to be a brain surgeon for that. All right, no disrespect to rocket scientists or brain surgeons. But, okay, what are you doing in those categories? You have to memorize stuff, and you have to have a lot of precision and maybe some hand-eye coordination. That's about it. I think entrepreneurs is a way tougher job. You got to be creative. You got to understand finance. You got to manage people. You got to recruit. You got to be a marketer. You got to be a product engineer. You got to deal with technology. I mean, maybe those other ones use one intelligence a lot. This uses all 7. It's a very difficult thing, but at the same time, incredibly rewarding. So what I wanted to do this evening, if you're cool with it, is share at least my journey, and for good or bad, tell you a little bit about what we're doing at Detroit Venture Partners, and then also share a couple kind of words of wisdom, I guess. Or what I would say, I was thinking about, my little brother Ethan is, he's almost 30, and he's out in San Francisco, and he's just launching his own company. So I was thinking, if he was sitting in the audience, what would I say to my brother Ethan? And that's maybe some of the things that I would share tonight for you guys as aspiring entrepreneurs. So quick backdrop. My story, I started becoming an entrepreneur in the very classical and traditional way. I started as a jazz musician. And I would bet that, I wouldn't even need to do a show of hands, I would bet that most people who are great entrepreneurs didn't go to Wharton, get an MBA, and do the traditional path. By the very definition of it, we're rule breakers. We're people that like to shake things up. We're renegades. And to me, that's way better proving ground and a way to learn the craft of entrepreneurship than you're going to learn in any sophisticated MBA program. So anyway, I started my first company. I was 20, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, frankly. Not that I do now, but I really didn't know what I was doing. And I never had taken a business class. I didn't know the first thing about a balance sheet. I just felt like I could improvise. I could figure it out. As a jazz musician, that's what we do. We figure stuff out. In fact, in jazz, only 1% of the notes are on the written page. And the rest of it, you make it up as you go. It's spontaneous creativity. It's improvisational. And really, that's exactly what we do every day as entrepreneurs. So I just said, I'm just going to figure it out. So I started this little technology company, And this was before you could buy a Dell computer or run down to Best Buy. What would happen is I mail-ordered components, I slapped them together in my college apartment, and I sold them as assembled computer systems. Kind of like what Michael Dell did with a lot less zeros after all the numbers. So I took a year off and built this company up, and I ended up selling it before I was able to drink legally. And I screwed all kinds of stuff up. Look, it sounds much more glamorous than it was. It wasn't a huge company, and I made a ton of mistakes, and I'm sure I pissed off clients, and I was a terrible leader and all this other stuff. But I learned a lot. And I think to me that's one of the best things that I can impart is that just going out there and doing stuff. You know, one school of thought is you sit there in stealth mode in some lab, and you perfect, and you perfect, and you perfect. Guess what, folks? The world's going to pass you by if you do that. Great entrepreneurs just leap into the fire and just figure it out as you go. It's an improvisational sport. So anyway, I did that company. I graduated and started a similar company. About 11 months in, one of my suppliers wanted my customer base. I was kind of good at hustling up business. So I sold that company very quickly. It wasn't, you know, a huge financial windfall, but it was nice enough. But really allowed me to start what I feel became a career in the internet. So this is in 1995. And in 1995, I would literally call people up and say, hey, have you ever heard of the internet? They're like, well, what's that? I'm like, well, we can build you a website. I'm like, well, what's a website? That's funny. I remember calling and saying, there's 10 million people on this internet thing. You got to get on. 10 million people worldwide. I mean, now there's what, like 500 million on Facebook alone? So anyway, I went and built websites. I was a web development shop. So kind of like half ad agency and half software company. And we built websites and intranets and e-commerce. And that was a good run. You know, it wasn't, again, a huge company. So I started in 95. And in 1999, there was a lot of M&A activity. There was a very robust internet. You know, it was the height of the bubble. So I was able to sell the company to a publicly traded firm. And I think at the time, maybe I had 40 people or so. So I mean, it was, you know, we started to get a little bit of scale, but it wasn't, you know, wasn't Quicken Loans. Anyway, so but more importantly though, I just kept learning and I kept growing and I kept getting my teeth kicked in and figuring it out. And I think it's kind of what we do as entrepreneurs. You get our teeth kicked in, you figure it out. Get your teeth kicked in some more, you figure it out some more. Anyway, it allowed me though the opportunity and really the privilege in 1999 of starting a company called ePrize. ePrize is a digital promotion company. So we do online sweepstakes and loyalty programs and contests and things like this. And at the time that I launched it though, I felt like we were going to go after a very specific customer base. Here's what I said in 1999. I'm like, all right, we're going to go after all the venture-backed.com companies that are going to take over the world. Forget the big brand advertisers. Those guys are dead. P&G, dead. Coca-Cola, forget it. You know, coffeecup.com, that's where it's at. Petfood.com, let's go. Right? And as ridiculous as this sounds right now, like at that time it sounded logical. So anyway, we go out and launch this company and got some fanfare and I raised some outside capital and the world changed. The world changed. The bubble burst. Petfood.com didn't exist. And we had to do what almost every entrepreneur has to do in their career. Adapt or die. And that's what we did. We said, all right, who's going to pay their bills? Petfood.com ain't paying their bills. So we got to go after P&G and Coca-Cola and Adidas and Nike and Microsoft. And it's a lot easier said than done. I mean, we had to completely pivot the company. It's like turning the plane around while you're flying in the air. But we did it. We figured it out. We improvised. The other thing I'd say about starting ePrize was that the whole conventional wisdom of the day was internet advertising. So there's, you know, Yahoo and Google was kind of getting up and running and a lot of internet advertising players. So if I followed the conventional wisdom, I'd go start an internet advertising company and I'd have like the 174th mover advantage. But I felt like if everyone's going to zig, maybe I should zag. And I looked at the world of marketing and realized that promotions was this huge category that was totally dormant online at the time. There was no internet promotion company. The internet or promotion world was this good old boy, old school, fear-based network. So I was a contrarian. I said, if everyone's going to zig, let's zag. Let's do the opposite. And that's what allowed us to really gain traction and steam and build something that today I think is still, you know, quite sustainable. Now, again, it's very glorious when you look at covers of magazines and, you know, all this kind of stuff. Look, entrepreneurship is hard, hard work. So what happened over time? We had September 11th. I lost my funding and had to regroup. I mean, all kinds of chaos and turmoil and all that. But what do? You keep fighting, you adapt, and you evolve. And that's what we did. one of the things too is that fire in the belly, and that I think was able to propel us to the point that we got. There was a company, by the way, for 25 years, this company in Long Island called D.L. Blair. And at that time, they had launched more games, contests, and sweepstakes than anybody else in the U.S. for like 25 years in a row. So what would you do if you'd done this for 25 years in a row? I hope you didn't do what they did, because they came in at 10, took a 2-hour lunch, and left at 4. They became complacent. Perfect opportunity. How do you think they felt when they were number one for 25 years, when all of a sudden, like 2004, some little company in Detroit beat them, 83% more? What about the next year? 285% more. What about the next year? 600% more. We ate their lunch without them looking. Now here's the thing. I'm proud of all that, but I'm humbled by it. Because I'll tell you, it's a lot more fun being the dislodgor than the dislodgee. And as quickly as we could displace them, I realized, and I really pounded into our team, that we could be dislodged just as easily. And so we've had a saying at our company for years and years, that someday a company is going to come along and put us out of business. So it might as well be us. We needed to be that force of dislodging change. So anyway, we continued on, and the company really did quite well. Started to get a lot of employees and traction, and today we work with all these major brands. But there were a lot of struggles, and I think that's the real truth of it. Just same thing though, keep adapting and growing. I was talking about it earlier. We ended 2005 with 88 employees. We ended 2006 with 260. So the sheer absorption of that, I mean, again, it sounds quite glamorous, doesn't it? It's like when you tell your spouse, I'm going on a business trip. It sounds very glamorous, but not so much. What ended up happening is all these systems that we thought were scalable just bogged us down. And we had to, once again, reinvent the company, adapt or die. Same theme, different setting. Well, anyway, things went on, and we had a very good run. But in end of 2009, I started feeling like it was time for me to do something different. And I read a great article, and it compared the metaphor of leadership. And it basically said that when you're very young as a company, leadership metaphor is like jazz, which again, I play jazz, right? So it's like you're improvising, you're in the fray, you're constantly adapting, you're taking risks, you're a small group of people. But over time, as a company grows, and ePrize grew to be about 350 people, the metaphor shifts to one of like a symphony conductor. You're no longer playing the instrument yourself, you had to back up a step. And it's about orchestration and precision, organization. Well, being a jazz musician, I started to think, you know what? I'm okay at that, but maybe that's not my best skill. Maybe that's not doing the best thing for the company. So it probably would be more ego-like to stick around and say, well, I'm the CEO, screw everybody. But I realized that I probably wasn't the best leader for the company anymore. So I went to our board and said, hey, I think it's time for me to move to a chairman role. So we brought in an outside CEO, and today the company's doing great. In fact, 2010 was a record year, both top line and bottom line. We're hiring like crazy, which made me think, by the way, I should have left years ago. But no, in all seriousness aside, it was really a neat thing and allowed me to do what is a wonderful joy as an entrepreneur. At some point, once your baby goes to a certain point, is to go take on your next chapter. So I want to share a little bit about what the next chapter is. In November 1st, right here in the city of Detroit, we launched a venture capital firm. And not a venture capital firm doing advanced engineering or clean tech or biotech, doing software. And not doing late stage stuff, doing early stage stuff. The stuff you'd see in San Francisco or Boston or New York. Once again, I'm so thrilled to take a contrarian view and do the opposite of what's expected. Everyone says Detroit, oh, well, you know what they say about Detroit, right? I don't. I see an amazing opportunity, and I know you guys see an amazing opportunity also. I see incredible talent. I see brilliant entrepreneurs. I see fabulous universities kicking off unbelievable technology. And I see very little competition. So wow, what a perfect spot to put our stake in the ground. So we launched this thing November 1st. So far, by the way, that's proven to be the case. We've looked at something like 90 deals in the last 2 months. And some of them are, not as good as you'd like, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of them that are fantastic. And I'm really it's very encouraging to see the amazing talent and seeing it right here in our great city. The other reason, though, that we launched this company, my partners, Dan Gilbert, Brian Hermlin, and myself, was not only to drive economic gain, but to make a difference. we see an opportunity to help rebuild this region, which really could use it. And we felt like if we were going to wait around for the government to do it, we'd be waiting an awful long time. So we took it upon ourselves. We said, you know what, it's time. It's time for us to make a difference. It's time for us to look down the streets and look at this amazing architecture and fill those buildings with brilliant technology companies as opposed to being boarded up. So we're really excited, again, not only to drive economic prosperity in the region, but to make a difference, to create jobs, to create hope, to create really new and exciting breakthrough companies. So that's what we're doing at Detroit Venture Partners. And of course, I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs, and if we can be helpful in any way, great. We're looking, software, technology, those types of companies. Initial check size is like $250K to $750K, and we'll invest $2 to $3 million-ish per deal. And what we're looking to do, though, is we're again trying to change the game. Just like I did in ePrize. There was an existing rule set, and I just put a thumb in the eye of it. That's exactly what we're doing now. So we're looking at venture investing as a full contact sport. So instead of just writing a check and pointing fingers at board meetings, we're putting just our money, but we're also putting our time where our bets are. So we're getting very involved, helping entrepreneurs grow great companies. All right, enough. I'm not trying to make a sales pitch, but I at least want to give you a sense of what we're doing. And with that, I'd like to give you just a couple pieces of wisdom. As I said earlier, if my brother Ethan was sitting in the room tonight, what would I say to him? And here's what I'd say. I'd say, number one, as an entrepreneur, set out to change the world or don't bother. The world doesn't need another Me Too anything. There's so many copycat companies out there. And launching a company that looks just like everybody else but a teeny bit better is just not worth doing. We only have one go around here, right? Let's make it count. Go big or go home. My friends Eric Levkowski and Brad Keywell helped Groupon get started. They're the major backers of Groupon. Guess what? They did something totally different, radically different, and created billions of dollars of wealth. Guess what? There's 1,000 Groupon copycats out there. Set out to change the world or don't bother. And by the way, follow your passions in that. Do something that's important to you, that you feel is going to really make a difference. I don't think the world needs another tobacco company, frankly. There's a lot of things the world doesn't need. Find the ones that it does need. Set out to solve a real problem that human beings are experiencing. Maybe it's a problem they don't even know yet that they have. But make sure that when you look back at the end of the day, your company didn't just make money, but it made a difference. Point number 2 that I would encourage. Creativity has become the currency of success. We had a global financial crisis, mortgage meltdown, turmoil everywhere, stock market crash. And I believe that signified the end of an era and is ringing in the beginning of a new era, the age of creativity, where original ideas and imagination and new thinking have become, again, the currency of success. You think about what worked in the past, you could control information and win. Can't anymore, there's Google and Wikipedia. You could control geography and win. Guess what? It's a global world now. The world is flat. You used to be able to follow the rules. You could go work for a big company, they'd hand you an operating manual, you do as you're told, and 30 years later you retire with a gold watch. That world does not exist anymore. That's a fantasy. It's gone. The only thing that we can do as companies, as entrepreneurs, and as team members is to use creativity to drive success. And it's the most important attribute. Same way that we pivoted when all our .com customers went out of business, we've got creative and figured it out. That's the skill that you're going to need as an entrepreneur to win. All right, thing number 3. Thing number 3 is a quote by a very famous guy, historical figure in fact, Yoda. Yoda from Star Wars. And Yoda from Star Wars had a saying, he said, do or do not. There is no try. Do or do not. There is no try. The way I interpret that as an entrepreneur is it's about execution. It's about commitment. It's about knowing that you, as an entrepreneur, you've got that gravity that we talked about with the space shuttle, right? You've got the whole world trying to push you down. And how are you going to fight through it? How are you going to figure it out? It's not about succumbing to brick walls. It's about going around them, or going through them, or going under them, or going over them. It's about figuring out what you're going to do, setting it, stake in the ground, and accepting nothing less than getting it done. There's all these horrible statistics about entrepreneurs that we all see. I don't even know what they are. What, 9 out of 10 fail, 5 out of 6 fail? I don't even know. It doesn't matter. The point is the statistics are against us. And I think the reason is because as entrepreneurs, we think, all we need is a big idea. I got a great idea. Here's the thing. I'm going to give the idea to you. I'm going to go hang out and then just come back in a few years and give you a bunch of money. Cool? You go with that? I don't think you're signing up for that, are you? What's your name?
Gary.
Gary's not signing up for that. Gary's not signing up for that. Because we all know the idea is important, but it's the hard work of building and nurturing that idea that makes a thing a reality. It's like when you have kids. You know, having the kid is one thing. No disrespect to it's labor is tough, right? But it's those 18 years or 25 years that go on where you do the hard work. That's what entrepreneurship is. By the way, I asked my grandma one time, I said, what were the hardest years growing, raising kids? I was thinking she'd say the teens or the infant. She said, the 50s. When my kids were in their 50s, it was really tough. Anyway, point being, do or do not, there is no try. It's about execution. It's about focus. I believe any one of us can tip the odds in our favor instead of against us if we treat it like a real business. It's not just about launching your dream. It's about launching your dream and making it happen. And finally, the fourth piece of advice that I would give to my brother and I'd like to share with you tonight is a very simple phrase, which is this. Leave it better than you found it. Leave it better than you found it. And I think that applies to all situations. When you have a meeting with your team member, and let's say they screwed something up, and what do you want to do? You want to pound on the table and scream at them and tell them what an idiot they are. How about trying this? Leave it better than you found it. Maybe you could use it as a teachable moment, and you could coach them to help them become a better, more talented person. You could help them in their career instead of, demean them and make them feel bad. Maybe when you work with a customer, you try to leave it better than you found it. It's not about how much profit can I extract in this deal. It's how can I help that person's life. Maybe when you launch a new product, you say, how can I make the world better than I found it? Maybe when you work with a vendor, instead of just beating that tar out of them to get a lowest price on supplies, how can you leave that relationship better than you found it? Every meeting, every interaction, every chance you have to even do something like this, where you get to talk to other entrepreneurs, how can you leave it better than you found it? It's funny, entrepreneurs, the Dan Gilberts of the world who have achieved phenomenal success and made a lot of money, people like that I find not the most selfish, I find them to be the most giving. And not only because they maybe have more money, but they're giving it always. They're giving of their time and their energy and their passion and their commitment. And they do so because they want to leave the world better than they found it. Not just with their business, but with every interaction that they have. So again, I would say, change the world or don't do it at all. I would say creativity is your most important skill set, so develop it like mad. I'd say do or do not, there is no try. And I would say leave it better than you found it. So before I conclude, I want to make a plea. I want to make a plea. I look at the city of Detroit, and I think we're at a pivotal moment. We're going to look back in 10 years, and we're going to say one of two things. We're going to say, it was this person's fault, it was that person's fault, the mayor, the city council, the financing, the banks, the government, everybody else, and look at this piece of shit that we have here. Or, we're going to look back and say, do you remember that moment in 2011 when we committed to making this place an amazing city again? When we recognized that this is a city with a soul, that this entire city and this entire region is on the map because of entrepreneurial spirit. That's what put us here, and that's what's going to revitalize this region. And I hope that this is a night, and this is a year, that we all make the commitment. It's our responsibility. It's not the government, it's not the banks, it's not this, it's not that. It's ours. It's yours, it's mine, it's yours, it's yours, it's yours. It's our time. It's our opportunity to rebuild this amazing city and look back and hand our kids and our grandchildren something that's incredible and beautiful and special. We can be part of this journey, and I hope that we're part of it together. And I just want to thank you once again, not only for the opportunity to speak to you tonight, but for the hard work that you're doing as talented entrepreneurs, doing good in the world, and rebuilding the city. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to Josh. I mean, he took his time out here, and just the funny thing is that I didn't tell him anything about what to say or what this group was about. I just known him. I knew he could be inspirational. He could be a great speaker. And he just wants to thank you for your time, all right?
Thanks.
You're always welcome back. Thank you.
Josh, what instrument do you play?
I play real traditional jazz guitar.
Hank, if we go ahead and wire you up. Okay, just a couple of background words about Ed while he finishes getting wired up here. I ask everyone to give me 2 pieces of information, a unique piece of background, and something unique and interesting about them. Like this. In terms of background, Ed's last company that Ed started, CareerSite, came about because of it was one of the first web-based application, cloud-based applications for a recruiting career search type of applications. I'm going to ask him a little bit about that. He said that he was in his office talking to a venture capitalist from Silicon Valley. He said, well, what do you know about this little company I'm thinking about investing some money in by the name of AuctionWeb? He was asking Ed for his counsel. That company has since changed its name. It's now eBay. So Ed is a very important person to ask things about. Something unique and different. The genesis of this idea came about from his talking with the University of Michigan's Office of Technology Transfer in the Ann Arbor IT zone, which is now merged into the current Ann Arbor Spark. So he has some background in what he's doing here. Ed, go ahead and take it away. Okay, well. A couple of background pieces of information about Erica. She's probably the only person in the room that's been honored with a National Endowment of the Arts Fellowship, a Rockefeller Multi-Arts Production Grant, and Crane's Detroit Business 40 Under 40 Award. So we got pretty illustrious folks we have here. One piece of information about our company, back last December, just a month ago, New York Times did an article on a company, Local Orbit, that was titled Cabbages and Computers. And one of the company's New York customers placed an order for $60,000 worth of sustainable, locally produced turkeys, vegetables, cranberries, and Christmas cookies that were donated to 2,000 families in the Brooklyn, New York area. So, pretty interesting. So, Erica, please, go ahead.
Thank you. Am I on? Can you hear me? No? Am I on now?
Yes.
Okay, good. It's strange. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to talk about local food, and actually we're sitting in Eastern Market, apparently, according to the CompuServe building. They called all the rooms are named after locations, and I guess we look out. You can't hear me?
No.
Okay.
I think it's on mute.
Okay, how's that? All right. Hi, everybody again. Okay, so I'm going to talk about local food, and it's probably fitting that we're sitting in, I think this room is called Eastern Market, I was told by the Ware people. So, and actually I think we look out directly on the Eastern Market where I just came from before I came here. So, local food. I think everybody knows that you've heard about the demand for local food. Oprah's talking about it, the White House is talking about it, Martha Stewart's talking about it, chefs and consumers want it. And state and local governments are talking about local and regional food, promoting its economic development benefits. Demand for locally sourced food is exploding, and it's not a passing trend. It's really a fundamental shift in how we view food and its production. The problem is that current methods for independent producers to get local food to market are really stuck in the 20th century. The chefs and consumers want to purchase food from farmers they know and trust, but you have to work really hard to get it. Small farms and producers don't have viable distribution systems. Communications are efficient, and the online services that are available are just inadequate. So I'm Erica Block, and I'm the founder of Local Orbit, and our challenge and both our opportunity is to build a full menu from direct sales from multiple sellers in a single shopping cart. So the end goal would be for buyers to purchase all their weekly grocery needs from local food producers. That's vegetables, fruits, meats, grains, dairies, beverages. We can actually buy all of that in Michigan, even most of the year round. So Local Orbit has built a web platform